Brooks Houck is a murderer. Almost 10 years to the day since his girlfriend, Crystal Rogers, went missing, Brooks, this week, was found guilty of involvement in her murder. I've been obsessed with this case ever since looking through the police interviews that Brooks did and just delving into them and just seeing the deception in the guy. It was very clear to see that he was misleading the police. I can't believe it's taken them 10 years to get ahead of this and finally get him in court and have him found guilty. And so I kind of thought I'd left Brooks behind because I'd looked at his police interview. I've sort of done that as much as I could. And then this got sent my way. It is an interview he did with Nancy Grace at the time that he was supposed to be the worried, concerned boyfriend, worrying about the disappearance of his girlfriend, Crystal. And we're going to look at that in this episode from Never a Truer Word, where we look at the words that people choose to use to see if they're telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And then we'll use my statement investigation process to break it down and see whether they're telling the truth, whether they're misleading us, whether they're deceiving us, and where their motivation is as well. It's something that I do with investigators, with corporate clients, and with the media to get to the real truth of what is being said. And we are live here. One of the reasons that I do this live, in fact, as I always say, the reason I do it live is to have your in interaction to find out what you think, what questions you have, and what you notice that maybe I don't notice in the words that we look at. So I can see we've got Erin and we've got Sheila there. Sheila saying that Nancy Grace scares the bejesus out of me. I love analyzing interviews on the Nancy Grace show, Sheila, because she asks some really direct questions. So I do love doing that. Okay. So shall we dive in to the first interview part with Nancy, talking to Brooks Houck? There are two other people involved here, which are Crystal's mum and dad as well. If you know the story, then there's a little bit more to say about those as well. But let's dive into the interview and listen to Brooks talking to Nancy Grace.
Now, in addition to her parents, Tom and Sherry Ballard, her boyfriend that she lived with, they're in their 3-bedroom suburban home. Brooks Houck is with us. So, Brooks, you go to bed and she's still playing games on her phone. The next morning, around 8 o'clock, you notice that she's missing. Did you report her missing?
No, ma'am.
Why?
That is a great question, and one that I definitely want to hit the public and the media. I was not in the least little bit alarmed in any way, shape, or form. We have had a stress relationship at times, and one of the ways that Crystal has always chose to cope or to deal with that is by going to a young woman's name, Sabrina. That is her cousin, her dad's brother's daughter, whom she's very close to. She spent the night there on several occasions.
When you say several, do you mean 1, 3, 20?
In the neighborhood of 4 to 6.
Okay.
Like that.
Tom and Sherry Ballard, were you aware of that? Do you know who Sabrina is?
Yes, ma'am.
That's my niece.
Okay. Did you know that she goes and spends the night over there when she's having an issue at home?
I've known probably one time.
Okay, so there finishes with the parents there. If anyone is in the chat, by the way, and knows the full timeline around the Tommy Ballard and what happened to him, let me know, because I want to talk about that as well. But let's look at Brooks' words then. Nancy Grace says, so Brooks, you go to bed and she's still playing games on her phone. The next morning around 8 o'clock, you notice that she's missing. Did you report her missing? And he says, no, ma'am. Now, here we have what the truth looks like. No, ma'am. Straightforward. It's a yes/no question. Did you report her missing? There's 3 possible answers to that, which are truthful. Yes, no, and don't know. Obviously, on this one, because he's being asked about what he did, then there's only 2 possible answers, yes or no, and he comes up with no. No, ma'am. Now, number 1, good baseline here. This is what it sounds like when he tells the truth. This is what it sounds like when most people tell the truth. It's straightforward. It deals with the answer that's there. Sheila says, wow, a real answer. Indeed, that's what it is. It is a real answer. And why is it a real answer? Well, one of the things that someone who is deceiving you has to do is take into account the real world. things that other people know, things that are on the record, things that are witnesses to. And obviously, the fact that he did not report her missing to the police at that time is a known fact. If he said there, yes, I did, someone would pop up very quickly and contradict him, and he'd look like a shady liar. So what a liar and a deceiver has to do is make sure that what they say does fit in to the facts as they're known. So he's never going to lie here, which is why we get what the truth sounds like. No, ma'am. 2 words, no explanation, nothing else. I think that's just about what we can expect from him in terms of like truth there, because why, he's asked. And he starts off by saying, that is a great question, and one that I definitely want to give you, the public, the media. And as Erin says, that's a good question. Let me explain at length. Indeed, Erin, it is very much like a, well, I'm not going to answer your question straight away. I'm going to give you something a little bit longer here. But also, I think this is him buying thinking time. This is him going, oh, right, I need to get my words straight in my head. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just say what a great question it was. And it is one that I want to answer. And you'll see he probably thinks, oh, if I finish on you, I definitely want to give you. I still don't have the words ready in my head. So who else do I want to give it to? Oh, the public and the media. So he's bought himself the thinking time. He now has the words ready in his head. So why? Why didn't you report her missing in the morning? And he says, I was not in the least little bit alarmed in any way, shape, or form. Now, I've never seen anything like this before, because this manages to be both truthful and deceptive. Truthful because he was not alarmed. I was not alarmed. Why was he not alarmed? Because he wasn't expecting her to be there. So it's truthful there. I wasn't alarmed. Look, he wants to give the impression that he wasn't alarmed because it often happens. But the truth is, he weren't alarmed that morning. He was not alarmed that morning because he was not expecting her to be there. And he really, really wants to persuade us that he was not alarmed, that there was nothing suspicious going on here, that, hey, I just wasn't alarmed because this happens all the time. So he uses all those persuasive words. I was not in the least little bit alarmed in any way, shape, or form. It would have had the same meaning if he'd just said, I was not alarmed. But he's gone and added all these extra words to persuade us. He really, really means it. I was not in the least little bit alarmed in any way, shape, or form. And what I noticed through here is I was thinking about this and going, look, if his story was true, then he may say, I wasn't alarmed. That could hang together. What he doesn't add is at this time. If he said, I wasn't alarmed at this time, going on to allude to the fact that alarm did come to him later, that I wasn't alarmed at that point, but I did get alarmed. But he doesn't ever say there was any alarm going on with him whatsoever. As Erin says, the alarm is truthful because he knew she wasn't coming home. He knows what's happened. He then goes extra because he's asked why, and he could have said, I wasn't alarmed, but he explains why he wasn't alarmed. We have had a stressed relationship at times, and one of the ways that Crystal has always chose to cope or to deal with that is by going to a young woman's name, Sabrina. That's her cousin, her dad's brother's daughter, whom she's very close to. Let's break all that down here. So this is showing some nervousness, some, again, gathering his thoughts before the words comes out. We have had a stress relationship. Now, have had is in the past. Now, I'm 50-50 on this because obviously he is talking about events in the past, the stress that has been there in the past, but it is talking about Crystal and the relationship in the past tense as well. It's not we have a stressy relationship. So I think there is some leakage there, that the relationship, at the very least in his head, the relationship is in the past, which, well, why would the relationship be in the past? He knows it's over. Why does he know it's over? Maybe he knows Crystal is dead at this point. Now, he wants to give us the impression that he wasn't alarmed because this happens quite a lot, but he doesn't say those words. When you have experienced something, when you've felt something, you will find that the words live inside you. Your brain has a representation of what happened to you, and the words to describe it will come out very easily. They will flow and they will make sense. If you're making that experience up, then you have to make up the experience, and the words that you have inside your body they're matching a different experience. So the words to express this made-up experience come to you a hell of a lot harder. And that's what's happening here if we look at what Brooks said, because it doesn't hang together. So we've had a stress relationship at times, and one of the ways that Crystal has always chose to cope or deal with that is by going to Sabrina's house. So which is it, Brooks? Is it one of the ways that Crystal chooses to cope and deal with it? Because that's what you're saying. Or is it what she always does? Because that's also what you're saying, but both cannot be true. One of the ways that Crystal has always chose can't both be true. That's what I mean about insiders. When we don't have the genuine experience, the words come across as inauthentic because there's little bits that don't hang together. There's contradictions there. It is either one of the ways that Crystal deals with things, or it's the way she always deals with things. Either one could be true, but both cannot be true together, and that comes out in the words. What I also say here, and I saw this in the police interview as well, is that it's Crystal who has to deal with and cope with things. It's not Brooks that has to deal with or cope with things. So what I think we've got going on there is him just letting in that and you'll see it was Crystal who always left the home as well. Is I think that the issues were issues that Crystal had with Brooks. It wasn't a 50-50 thing. It wasn't, this stressed relationship where both parties were equally culpable. I think that comes through there. It was always Crystal going away to cope or deal with it. So it was always Crystal that had the issues. Why was it always Crystal that had the issues? Because Brooks is not a nice person. He then introduces Sabrina in the most complicated way possible by going to a young woman's name, Sabrina. That's her cousin, her dad's brother's daughter, whom she's very close to. I'll give him points for present tense there. She's very close to is what he said. And then he says, she's spent the night there on several occasions. And I want you to remember that because it becomes relevant later. She's spent the night there on several occasions. So here he wants us to get the impression that this always happens. This often happens. So he wasn't alarmed. But it's all in general. He's talking about what happens in general, not about what happened that night. For example, he doesn't say they had an argument that night. It would, again, hang together a lot better if he said, yeah, we had an argument the night before. When I woke up, she was gone. But quite often when that happens, she goes and stays with Sabrina. But he didn't say they had an argument the night before. It's all in general. And he just doesn't have the authentic experience to just complete the words, to complete the thought. Nancy Grace says to him, when you say several, do you mean 1, 3, 20? And he says, in the neighborhood of 4 to 6, something like that. Again, sorry, I'm asking you to remember lots of this, but do remember the word neighborhood there. And then in the neighborhood of 4 to 6, something like that. How vague is that? In the neighborhood of 4 to 6, what does that mean? Between 2 and 8, maybe, would be in the neighborhood of 4 to 6. And then when you've got that neighborhood down, so if we do go, it's 2 to 8, because that's the neighborhood of 4 to 6. But then it's only something like that. It's not 4 to 6. And then it's put to Crystal's parents. Tom and Sherry Bellard, were you aware of that? Do you know who Sabrina is? Yes, ma'am. That's my niece is the answer. And again, that is what the truth looks like, because it's straightforward. It is very few words. Do you know who she is? It's a yes, no question. Yes, ma'am. That's my niece. Really simple. Okay, did you know that she goes and spends the night over there when she's having an issue at home? And the answer is, I've known probably one time. So again, it's really straightforward. I've known probably one time. There's nothing there persuading us. It's only I've known one time, which leaves the open to the fact, could it be more than once? I just didn't know about it. Probably, again, is being deliberately vague. And I don't mean deceptively vague. I just mean they're saying, I'm only really aware of that one time, but I've known probably one time. That is what the truth sounds like. So what have I got from that first section there? It is not a credible explanation of why he wasn't alarmed. And that's got to set off red flags. In fact, set off alarms left, right, and center, because he should have been alarmed or had a reasonable explanation that hung together, that was explained properly about why he wasn't alarmed. And I also think the issues were bigger than this stressful relationship that he has put the label down to there. So let's have a look at some of your comments. First of all, hello to Shaman Ray, who is a new member of the YouTube channel. If you do want to become a member of the YouTube channel, you get exclusive access to episodes that no one else will ever get. You can also get early access to the regular weekly episodes as well if you become a member of the channel on YouTube. I wanted to get this one. Jackie, hi everyone. Jackie from England. Heatwave again. LOL. I'm so into this. And I am into this as well, Jackie. The only reason I wanted to point that out is because, yeah, man, we are having an English heatwave today, and it is very, very warm in here at Never a Truer Words Towers. So, hey, Jackie, I hope you have the ability to open a window at the very least, which I can't do because I'm doing this, sadly. But thank you for your comment, Jackie. Erin, how many lines does it take to answer the question? Blah, 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 and no answer. That is very much what our good friend Brooks is into doing. Panic at the Discourse. There is the stressed relationship again. It sounds like outside stress. I hadn't thought of that, actually. Yeah, he mentioned stressed relationship in the police interviews as well. Strikes me as a label he's created. And you'll see that no one owns the stressed relationship. It's just a stressed relationship there. Could it be outside stress? Yeah, it could be. Was there stress coming from outside? Potentially from Brooks' family, who don't seem to come across well here. Jackie, again, love this line. This man smells of guilt 100%. Yes, he does. And Erin picked up on me bringing attention to the word neighborhood. Is that leakage? Is her body in the neighborhood? It's never been found. No one knows, Erin. However, just remember that word neighborhood as we go through it. So yeah, do please keep the comments coming on in. Martina, English heat wave, 25 Celsius. Oh, but that is going to be like the comment that throws the cat amongst the pigeons, because this is an American case, so we'll have an American audience. They won't understand 25 Celsius, Martina. Also, it was 26 where I was today, so that's one warmer, Martina. But thank you very much for your comment. Thank you for joining us. Okay, shall we listen to another part of Brooks talking to Nancy Grace?
I want to go back to Brooks Houck, who was the last person to see her alive. Brooks, did you go on to the July the 4th get-together that day?
Yes, I did.
Even though you didn't know where she was?
Well, I was expecting, I'd putting in a phone call that morning and then around lunch. And usually the maximum period of time that she has stayed gone has only been like a day to a day and a half at the most. And as a result of that, I thought that she would.
Did you try to call her?
Us. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, ma'am.
Did you try to call her during that time?
Not while I was there. There at the 4th. I called her prior to leaving to head in that direction. Yes, ma'am.
So again, I mean, we just have all the Brooks things going on there. Nancy says, right, okay, I want to go back to Brooks Houck, who was the last person to see her alive. Brooks, did you go to the July the 4th get-together that day? And he says, yes, I did. All together now, what do we spot there? He's being honest. Yes, I did. What's the common connection between the things that we spot him being honest about? Because he answers yes, no questions with yeses or nos and very short answers. Yes, I did. What's the common thing? Witnesses, records. He was obviously at this July the 4th get-together. People would have seen him there. It will be a matter of record and a matter that is witnessed there for him. So he can't lie about it. He can't sort of back out about it or be vague about it at all. So yes, I did. And Nancy says, even though you didn't know where she was, and he says, I was expecting, and then he stops that thought. So he's going to say, I was expecting, but he thinks better of it. I think, what was it going to be? I was expecting her to turn up, or I was expecting her to be there, or I was expecting to hear from her. We don't know and we can't guess, but he was expecting something, but he doesn't want to tell us what he was expecting. He thinks there is something better to say, which is, I put in a phone call that morning and then around lunch. I put in a phone call to your missing girlfriend. Not I tried calling her, not I tried to speak to her, but I put in a phone call. That is like something you do with someone at work. I put in a phone call to see if they're available for a meeting. Would you ever say I put in a phone call to a parent? Would you ever say I put in a phone call to a child? that's so functional and so dutiful, rather than the way you would voice the concern, and a concerned phone call, and a wanting to know where someone was phone call. And this person, I'm guessing she was supposed to be going to this gathering with him, but he just put in a phone call that morning and then around lunch. And usually, and yeah, Erin in the chat spotted this, usually the maximum amount of time that she has stayed gone has only been like a day to a day and a half at the most. And as a result of that, I thought she would join us. So now we have what the expecting was there. As Erin says, put in a phone call so he can tick a box. And Martina says, put in a phone call, a duty performed. Yeah, down with all those. You put in a phone call when you're working, not in a personal situation, says Sarah. Yeah, exactly. It's like a duty. It's like a tick list, and maybe it's a tick list of things that he needs to say there. But let's go back to this. Usually, the maximum period of time she has stayed gone. So we've got usually, it's qualified to hell there. But usually the amount of time she has stayed gone has only been like a day to a day and a half. Okay, so 24 hours to 36 hours. And yet, let's flick back to how he described it before, because she spent the night there on several occasions, is what he said. She spent the night there at Sabrina's on several occasions. Now the description is no longer spent the night there, but has become being there for a day to a day and a half. So day and a half is kind of 2 nights normally, isn't it? Like, if you, yes. So really, again, the authentic language is not coming through here. It doesn't hang together. We have all of those contradictions coming through in the words there. So as a result of that, I thought she would join us. But let's go, back a bit to the amount of time she has stayed gone, the maximum period of time that she has stayed gone. Sarah picked it up there. Stayed gone. Interesting word. Stayed gone is very final, isn't it? Stayed gone is like not coming back. The number of, it's I would expect something just a little bit less final than that. The maximum amount of time she's stayed there, but stayed gone. And I think gone is a little bit of leakage there. That crystal is gone. So it was stayed the night before, but now it's a day to a day and a half. And he doesn't answer the question directly either. The question was, you went even though you didn't know where she was. And he doesn't say, I still wasn't worried. Look, I thought, that she would be back, or she was punishing me for something. Or, he doesn't have any words to back that up. So it's just not answering the question directly. Nancy Gray says, did you try to call her? He says, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, ma'am. Let's have a show of hands. Does he really not hear her, or is he feeling the stress and thinking, I need to take a bit of a breather here. I'll get her to repeat the question so I can get my words in. I think we've got some people there saying, Sheila saying, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, is buying for time and what to think. And Martina says stalling. Jackie says the same thing. I was thinking that. Sheila, yeah, I think it was just buying time. So Nancy repeats the question, did you try to call her during that time? And he says, not while I was there. There at the so it's got very stuttery. So again, those people who said, yeah, I think he is buying time there. I think what you got there is very true, because he's stressed and stuttery. He hasn't quite got it together to flow what he wants to say next. Not while I was there. There at the 4th. I called her prior to leaving to head in that direction. Someone's got an interesting observation about that, which we'll look at in a moment. But what I got from there was that this sounds almost like the language of law enforcement, doesn't it? Rather than the more casual. And again, it's that language of duty and process, rather than I tried to call her before we left. I tried to call her before we went there. Something like that. I called her prior to leaving to head in that direction. Also, head in that direction is not exactly heading exactly there. Did you go somewhere in between, Brooks? Because some of your movements have been a little bit sketchy, but look at the timelines. I called her prior to leaving to heading in that direction. He said earlier that I put in a phone call that morning and then around lunch. Now, I don't know the timings of this July the 4th thing, but the last call he mentioned was around lunch. So if he did not leave right after lunch to go to this gathering on the 4th. Then there's a little bit more deception going on there as well, because he said I called her prior to leaving, which is not earlier on that day. It's prior to leaving, so it's just before we left to go in that direction. So he is just showing all the signs of deception again. The calls he made, they were a duty and not a concern, is what I got from that little section there. And he shows again, it's about having authentic thoughts and having experience to articulate with flow and with clarity. And he shows no real thought that she'd be there whatsoever. Right, let's have a look at your comments that have come in there, and thank you for these. Erin, yes, this is, I think, Erin, you're talking about the prior to heading in that direction. He's using formal language to sound more reliable, and we see that a lot in deception, is that people will talk more formally when they're telling us a lie because they think it sounds more believable because they're talking properly. You might notice that people will not contract words, so they'll say she is rather than she's, or I'd do that would be replaced by I would do that, and so on. So yeah, great shout, Erin. That's really what could be going on there. Panic at the Discourse. Mums in the chats, would you leave a toddler behind if you had a tiff with your partner to such a degree you needed to cool off somewhere? I'm not a mum in the chat, but I'd be interested in those mums in the chat's opinions. Martina, I wonder if he speaks so slowly, deliberately to sound a little, slow. Now, I listened to a podcast about this. I told you I've been obsessed by it. And as all the time I've been listening to Brooks talk in the police interviews in here, I thought he's, a little bit slow, not the sharpest tool in the box. Just a little bit blunted as a person. But this podcast suggested that he was playing dumb in these interviews. He was playing a bit of the sort of local yokel type of character because that was going to make it easier for him to get through these interviews. He certainly was doing his best in the police interviews, and some of the things we didn't look at to slow the interview down. He loved drawing a map. It would be like, give me a bit of paper, I'll draw it for you. And he'd take a lot of time drawing the map when he could have just answered the question. So yeah, great thought, Martina. Erin says, weird that he needed to buy time when he says his answer before that he put in a phone call. I think, Erica, that's what threw him, that he'd been asked the question twice and he had to so when you in the process of telling a lie, you have to do a lot of things. You have to make up the lie. You have to remember where the truth sits so the lie can sit with the truth. And then you have to file the lie away somewhere as well, because if someone asks you to repeat it, you've got to remember the lie you told. So I wonder if that was going on there, which was he had to remember the lie that he'd told and get that out. I wonder if that's why he was buying thinking time. And also from Erin, I was just thinking that, why not reiterate those other times? So thank you very much for that. Now, listen, we've got one more section of this to go. It's quite a long one, and it's very, very revealing. It kind of takes a little bit of a turn there. Now, if you like this, do please press the subscribe button. Do like it as well so it gets out to more people and more people see this. But if you hit the subscribe button, that means this channel gets pushed to more people, which means more people get exposed to looking at the words that people use critically and understanding a little bit more about where someone can have the truth, someone can have deception, and where manipulation can be happening. It happens really quickly just by pressing the subscribe button. Then you're in there, and then more people get this as well. Other things that you might consider is linked in the show description to the Crystal Rogers playlist, where we've got the 2 police interviews of Brooks, if you haven't seen them already. And also his brother Nick was interviewed by the police, which is very interesting because Nick was a police officer at the time. He really should have been able to sort this one out and give some answers, does he? Well, that is in that playlist as well. It's available right now to members of the channel, but it will be available to everyone else this weekend. So that is in the show description. Okay, we have one last thing to do from Brooks talking to Nancy Grace, but it takes a bit of a turn.
People have accused you of not being involved enough in the search efforts. What's your response?
That is a great question, and one I certainly appreciate you asking me. And that is all of my efforts in searching for her have been done behind the scenes with the Nelson County Sheriff's Office.
Like
including
what?
Detective Snow, who's leading the investigation, and Jason Allison, who's a deputy there assisting him, along with the Kentucky State Police Agency, post number 12. So all
Well,
of
my question
time,
was what
because
you had been doing with them, but let me ask you this. I know that you agreed to take a polygraph. Did you pass?
because of the way that the lines or whatever were on the thing, they determined it to be what's called inconclusive. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but they did tell me it does mean that I wasn't lying, or I didn't pass it, or I didn't fail it. They just ruled it inconclusive, and that's exactly the way that it stands. I've been 100% completely honest with everyone. I've been 100% cooperative, and everything that has been asked of me, I've not asked for any kind of legal advice or assistance or an attorney of any nature. I'm 100% completely innocent in this, and I have exhausted my efforts with the law enforcement agencies to gather all the facts necessary to allow me to have a clean name again. And that's very important to me. I have not responded to a lot of the negativity and all this animosity because I want the emphasis to remain on Crystal's safe return home, and that's where I want it to. I want it to stay focused in that area rather than dealing with any of the animosity.
Wow, quite a lot there then. Some people have accused you of not being involved enough in the search efforts. What's your response, says Nancy. And he says, we've heard it before. That's a great question, and one I certainly appreciate you asking me. Well, what was all that about? Again, it's buying time. Stressful question, yeah? Some people say you haven't been involved in the search enough, and to give him the time to compose the answer in his head. Someone said in the chat earlier, and I love this, bring the script out and get it in front of him to give him the time to do that. Then that is a great question, and one I certainly appreciate you asking me. And that is all of my efforts in searching for her has been done behind the scenes with the Nelson County Sheriff's Office. In there, we have an indication that he's given up on them because, or is not doing any more with them because all of the efforts has been done behind the scenes. So he's not saying it's ongoing and it's not being done in the present tense. It's in the past tense. So therefore, he's sort of given up helping them. And Lena, who does some work on this channel, came up or gave me this brilliant phrase of borrowing authority, which he is doing here. So he's not just saying, I've been helping the police, but he names who it is. It's Nelson County Sheriff's Office. So he's borrowing the authority of them, making it sound more credible when he talks. It's not just I've been helping with the police or helping law enforcement. It's I've been doing this behind the scenes with Nelson County Sheriff's Office. Nancy, this is why I love Nancy. Then it goes, yeah, like what? And I don't know if he didn't hear the question or not, but he then just goes on to give the names of policemen. Detective Snow, who's leading the investigation, Jason Allison, who's a deputy there assisting him, along with Kentucky State Police Agency post number 12. And this is all just names coming there. Whether this flows on from the first part of the answer, and he didn't hear Nancy's like, what have you been doing? Or whether he's just giving names because he has nothing to say. Names and job titles, Erica, yes. He's being very formal about it. And also you'll notice again on talks of borrowing authority, he's not dealing with the bottom man. He's dealing with Detective Snow, who's leading the investigation. So he's being super helpful by going and naming all these people, but not once has he named anything at all that he's done. There is no action. All names, no action. And Nancy picks up on this. My question was, what had you been doing with them? But let me ask you this. I know that you agreed to take a polygraph test. Did you pass? We all know it's a yes, no question. Did you pass? Yes, I did. No, I didn't. And he gets stressed again because he says because of the way that the lines or whatever were on the thing, so the whatever on the thing is just vague and bland beyond belief, they determined it to be what's called inconclusive. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but they did tell me it does mean that I wasn't lying, or I didn't pass it, or I didn't fail it. What's inconclusive? He's inconclusive. That's all we know. He's the one that's inconclusive here. But he doesn't again come out and say it was inconclusive. He comes out and says this big explanation. It's what's called inconclusive. So it's not even it was inconclusive. It's just something called inconclusive. I'm not exactly sure what that means. Well, exactly there is a bit of a giveaway that he has some surety in what it means. He's just not exactly sure what it means. But they did tell me it does mean that I wasn't lying, or I didn't pass it, or I didn't fail it, which is bland beyond belief. Just stuff. It's the whatever thing. They just ruled it inconclusive, and that's the way it stands. So they just, and there's the word just, is there. They just ruled it inconclusive. So what he is saying here is it's just inconclusive. No big deal. Just. It's a very small thing. Just focus on that and move away. They just ruled it inconclusive as well. It's not that the test was inconclusive. It's not that his responses were inconclusive or anything like that. It's a ruling. Someone made it inconclusive. Distance. So he's not owning the results there at all. Now, you notice Nancy's question to him was, I know you agreed to take a polygraph. Did you pass? And that's dealt with. It was inconclusive. And he does not stop there. He goes on to say more. And this is the left turn, because when someone goes extra and answers a question and then says more, this reveals what their priorities are. This reveals what's important to them. And they are going to take the opportunity they have to get all the information out that is important for them to get out. Sadly, it's Brooks, so the information is a load of crap. I've been 100% completely honest with everyone. I've been 100% cooperative in everything that has been asked of me. I've not asked for any kind of legal advice or assistance or an attorney of any nature. So he's talking in these real absolutes here. So this is, again, the language of persuasive. 100% completely honest with everyone. Ever. I've been 100% cooperative in everything. So he's laying it on too thick here. It's really important for him to get all this across. Why is that? That's possibly because he ain't been completely honest with everyone. He hasn't been 100% cooperative. And you'll notice I've been 100% cooperative in everything that has been asked of me. Now that's qualified. It's not I've been cooperating in all the ways. It is everything that's been asked of me. Suggests he's not really been forthcoming there. He's only done all the things that have been asked of him, but he's had no get up and go about him, about getting out there and actually bringing proactive things to this cooperation. He's only done what's been asked of him. Then he says, I've not asked for any kind of legal advice or assistant or an attorney of any nature. I think that might have been a bad move, Brooks, but never mind. I'm 100% completely innocent in this. He carries on. So again, it's these absolutes. 100% completely. He doesn't need to say this. But also, there's nothing to be innocent of at this moment in time. If his story was true, if Crystal was missing, but no one knew what had happened to her. And at this time frame, anything could have happened. Crystal could have left. Crystal could have had some sort of mental breakdown and, no one knows where she is. Crystal could have had an accident. Any of these things could have happened. Crystal could be sitting in hospital, really safe, but can't remember her name or whatever. Or if she really just could have left and decided she'd had enough of this and she was off. There, in his telling of the story at this point, there's nothing to be innocent of. I'm 100% innocent suggests that there is something that you could be innocent of or guilty of. And he compounds that by saying in this, which again suggests an event. And again, the words don't expand. I had nothing to do with Crystal's disappearance. I don't know where she is would be more believable because it would be expansive. We would believe that, but I'm 100% completely innocent in this suggests knowledge of a crime. And I have exhausted my efforts with the law enforcement agencies to gather all the facts necessary to allow me to have a clean name again. And that's very important to me. So I have exhausted all my efforts with law enforcement. Never mind what law enforcement think. It's just I have exhausted all my efforts. And what is his priority here? It's not, I have exhausted all my efforts with law enforcement to get Crystal back, to find where Crystal is, or anything like that. It is to allow me to have a clean name again, and that's very important to me. Well, what about the safe return of your girlfriend, the mother of your child? That's not important to you. You're not helping law enforcement with that. Your only thing is that you want a clean name. I mean, this screams of the words of someone who is guilty. I've not responded to a lot of negativity and all the animosity because I want the emphasis to remain on Crystal's safe return home. And I bet you do, because at the moment, the emphasis is on you because you weren't alarmed. You didn't report her missing when you woke up in the morning and she wasn't there. And also, you went out on the 4th of July and hung out with your mates. And then also, you have not been helping law enforcement. In fact, all you've been helping law enforcement with is to clear your name, not to have her. So, yeah, all the emphasis on you. You want the emphasis to remain on Crystal and Crystal's safe return home. Again, safe implies danger. Now, there may be, you may be thinking the worst if your girlfriend's been missing for, I don't know how long it was, maybe about a week or something like that at the point of this interview. Danger might empty your head, but it's interesting. Danger might enter your head, sorry. It's interesting he has danger and safety there as a priority. And that's where I want it. I want it to stay focused in that area rather than dealing with any of the animosity. Hello, we have here, again, I don't want this pointing at me. I want it, the emphasis on Crystal. I want to turn all the attention away from me because that's what's really, really important to me. Look, that's everything there. So do get your final thoughts in the comments so we can go through some of those. But in that part there, his priority was clearing his name. It wasn't finding Crystal. You won't see him wanting to find Crystal at all. He said in his words, what's important to him is clearing his name. And it's not even, I want to get the heat off me so we can find Crystal. It's, I just want to clear my name and I want everyone to think about Crystal. He's gone extra to reveal what's important, which is this overly persuasive, I'm 100% innocent thing there. And he can't detail one bit of help that he's given the search, but he wants us to give the illusion that he's been really helpful, but not one detail. As I always say, sometimes what is missing from a statement is even more revealing than what is there. And what is missing in this statement? Concern for Crystal. He's on the Nancy Grace show. I guess his explanation for doing it would be to raise awareness so that if someone sees Crystal around, they can report her or try and get her to return home. There is no concern for Crystal whatsoever there. Also, he was on the show with her parents. No concern for those people as well. And no concern for their child either. You'll think about if you see the parent or the partner of a missing person, they have a child together, you'll see things like the kids miss you and so on. We even see that from Deceptive people. We didn't see that from Brooks. And in that whole thing, there was no moment of alarm. There's no alarm with the guy whatsoever. All he wants to do is clear his name. So there you go. That's a bit of Brooks. Oh, by the way, someone knows the timeline around Tommy Ballard. I didn't see it if it did go into the chat. If you do have that timeline, then do let me know so we could talk about that. Sheila says he's done nothing to look for her then. No, he really not, Sheila. Erica, oh my God, he must have read up on the politician sentence starters. It is as if he has sat there. That's a very good question. Yes, thank you very much for that. He was very good at those things. Martina says, we have to ask ourselves, why go on national TV? Can't help himself, can he? Is he a narcissist? Really could be, Martina. I'm not in any position to diagnose, but maybe I don't know, Scott Peterson did the same thing. They were getting so much flack for the lack of what they were doing and the lack of help they were doing and the lack of appearances and all that sort of stuff. Maybe he felt this would make him look more innocent. And Erica said 100% completely, sir. I mean, that was just trying too hard. And hey, Afton has been a member for a year already. Thanks for teaching us, Jack. Afton, thank you for being a member here and therefore a very valuable part of the community. Erica, all his efforts were behind the scenes, he says to the national news broadcast. I didn't notice that. He could have said, I'm here, haven't I, Nancy? What? But no, what effort you made in the search? Nancy, I'm on your show asking people to search for her. Please look at her picture. Call the tip line if you see her. That would have covered that off brilliantly. But no, he didn't, Erica. That's brilliant. His name is the most important thing. He then lists his priorities. He was first. Dizzy, those are accolades from fans. Sorry, I don't think that's actually meant for that. Panic at the Discourse. He leaked like between 4 to 6 words that indicate physical location. Yes, sorry, I didn't come back to this. Area was something that he said. Neighborhood was something that he said. Moving towards was something he said. Directions as well. I do think at the time Crystal was in the local area. I think it was very high up in his priority list, and it was leaking out there as well. Yes, I do think that there was plenty just there in that for him to it was neighborhood, it was area, really made me think his focus was on there at the time. He knew where Crystal was, and that's where it was. Right, that is it. Can I do some plugs? Dizzy and we're involved in planning something for Sunday, which is at what time would that be? It'll be about 12:30 Eastern time in the States, 5:30 I think here in the UK, where we are going to be looking at Lori Vallow. So I just can't stay away from American Murderers. She gave an interview recently whilst in prison, and I guess it would be in prison because she ain't getting out. So we are going to do that on Sunday with Joe. Also, if you are into this Brooks Houck and the Crystal Rogers case, then watch out, because we are going to do or have done the Nick Houck, the brother who's the police officer, interview, and that is available now. If you remember, like Afton is a member, so Afton can watch it right now. For the rest of the world, then you will be able to see it this weekend, coming on Sunday as well. And by the way, if you have been following the Salt Path scandal, then I'm going to do something on that, which will be with you shortly, because look, this all hangs together. Erin says the US has so many murderers to choose from to analyze. Yes, they do. It keeps me in a living very much. There are so many murderers, and when you run out, there's always some new ones coming along. But the Salt Path scandal doesn't involve murder. It involves two middle-aged people walking through the English countryside, but it is fascinating. So do keep an eye out for that, because it's going to be just a little bit different from most of the stuff that I've done before. Do read up on the Salt Path scandal, because what I've got to say on it is it's going to be really interesting and very, very different. But if you do like your murderers, Lori Vallow, and then if you like people who could be involved in a crime, Nick Brooks coming up at the weekend as well. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for all your well-informed comments, and we'll see you soon for something new from Never a Truer Word.